Welcome to Just Ride Bikes and this, the all new Giant TCR Advanced SL. And today I'll tell you all about the bike, give you a tour of all the changes and improvements, how much lighter it is and aerodynamics and so on, go for a first ride, and also, which I'm really excited to do, show you exclusively how the bike is actually made, because Giant have invited me here to Taiwan, to their HQ, to see firsthand how the bike is actually made. So really exciting. There will be a more in-depth video on the manufacturing process coming very soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But today, let's focus on the bike, the changes, and my first impressions. So let's dive in.
The TCR platform is now 28 years old, and this is the 10th generation model, and it's still positioned as a total race bike, the perfect all-rounder. Yes, the new bike looks very similar to the old bike, which I personally love. It's a classic silhouette, and I particularly love the non-dropped rear stays. But when you zoom in closer to the bike, you realise the extent of the changes.
And naturally, it's lighter, stiffer, and more aero than the old bike, which is what we want, right? We don't want heavier, slower, and flexier bikes, do we? No. But finding improvements on road race bikes these days is getting harder and harder. But Giant wasn't deterred by this and really drove forward with innovation in carbon fibre manufacturing, using their 40 years of expertise in carbon manufacturing to find improvements across the board. There's no one standout improvement, it's a sum of all the parts that really contribute to the extra performance this bike offers.
Giant is claiming 690 grams for the top level SL frame, down from 765 grams, while a complete bike is 6.4 kilos, down from 6.7 kilos, which compares well with a Tarmac SL8, which is about 6.5 to 6.6 kilos.
It's also the stiffest TCR ever made, and it's more aero than the old bike.
Giant developed an all-new tube profile for the frame and handlebar, and in its wind tunnel testing, conducted at 40 km per hour with a moving dummy. It's claiming a 2.2 watt saving for the frame and a complete bike of just over 4 watts. That's not a lot, I know, and is it enough to challenge the likes of a Tarmac SL8? We'll have to wait and see.
But we now have full internal routing, as first seen on a Propel aero bike and a Defy endurance bike. So the hoses go underneath the stem into the frame via a D-shaped steering tube.
It's also the stiffest TCR ever made. Yes, the new bike retains the seat mast, but only on the range-topping SL. Giant offers its weight, compliance and aerodynamics and benefits of this design. Lower TCR models get a regular seat post. It's also a disc brake bike only, there is no longer a TCR with rim brakes. And tyre clearance is largely the same, so clearly the company felt that was enough for a race bike. I think wide tyres might have been nicer, but they could argue that if you want bigger tyres, then you choose a Defy, which goes up to 38mm. Giant explained to me that while the goal was to make the TCR lighter, stiffer and more aero, actually achieving their goals was very challenging.
And with this new bike, Giant hasn't just focused on the frame and the fork. They launched the Cadex wheels in 2019, and the new bike, they're really taking a system optimization approach. We've heard other brands do this in the past, like Cadex with their system integration, or SI for short, and trying to extract as much performance as possible from the entire bike has led them to really working with the wheels, the tyres, the handlebar, the frame and fork together to give improvements across the board. And they claim that the combination of the linear drag improvements, the rotational drag savings, and also the rolling resistance efficiency of the new tyres gives a combined drag saving of 12 watts.
Next up was redriving its innovation in carbon fibre manufacturing. This is where the magic really happens, and something we've got to see firsthand. There's a separate video coming to the channel very soon, so stay tuned for that. This includes a new carbon manufacturing process called cold blade, a cutting process that improves the accuracy of the cutting, meaning they can create more complex shapes and use less pieces of carbon in the frame. So the new SL frame is now made up of just 270 pieces of carbon compared to 330 on the old bike, saving weight and improving the performance. Furthermore, the front half of the frame is now moulded as one piece. This means they use a single bladder rather than three as they did on the old bike. And even the paint process is new, which saved weight on the bike. As with the previous TCR, there are 3 levels to choose from, and prices start from £2,700 and go right up to £12,000. At the top of the tree is the SL, using Advanced SL grade carbon fibre in the fork and the frame, the best of the best. In the middle is the Pro, with an advanced grade carbon frame and the same SL fork as on the top level bike. And then the entry level Advanced gets the same advanced grade frame as on the Pro, but a non-SL fork. Giant first launched its Cadex wheel range back in 2019, and today launched with a brand new Max 40 wheelset as featured on a range-topping SL. This is a wheelset designed for the GC general classification rider and uses a 40mm rim, which gives away some aero performance for low weight and crosswind stability. They hit the scales at a claimed and very impressive 1,249 grams, which is about the same as the new Factor 48/58 wheels launched the other week. The wheels use a thin carbon fibre spoke integrated into thin carbon aero flanges for maximum power transfer. Completing the raft of new product announcements is a brand new Cadex Race GC tyre. It's tubeless only with a 240 TPI construction, which improves rolling efficiency by a claimed 6.6 watts compared to the old tyres on a previous 9th generation TCR. So, as you've learned, while the new bike looks very similar to the old bike, there are lots and lots of changes and improvements underneath the paint. But how does it actually ride? Well, there's one way to find out.
There's a big bunch rolling out to the hotel. Nice to get out of the city, into the countryside, heading towards some hills. The roads are really good, really smooth, no potholes, no traffic either. A lovely afternoon for a bike ride. Now, this is just a first ride, so I won't go too much into detail about what it's all about because, well, unfamiliar roads, it's boiling hot, the humidity is just insane. And I don't know, I'll wait till I get home, ride a bike on familiar roads and spend a bit more time on it really, but I'll give you a bit of flavour straight from the saddle, unfiltered. And well, it's a 6.4 kilo stiff, lightweight aero race bike. 6.8 kilos or just under for my size ML with pedals, power meter and computer. So super lightweight. And it does remind me, unsurprisingly, of a Tarmac SL8. Has that same kind of lack of mass when you're sprinting, when you're climbing. We just did a climb just now. My heart rate through the roof, but the bike was just going so well. It really wasn't holding me back. My fitness definitely was. But the stiffness is really standing out. The wheels are mega stiff as well. You really feel that straight away. They are apparently stiffer than the lightweights, which I've ridden in the past, and they are bloody stiff wheels. And these are stiffer, and that really has a big impact on the ride of the bike. The frame, fork, handlebar are stiffer too, but I think the wheels are making a big difference into how the bike is riding today. And it feels way more direct. The responsiveness is through the roof compared to that Tarmac, which is no flexy noodle. This bike just feels on another planet of stiffness. So I can't wait to try the bike with some different wheels and see how much is the wheels and how much of the frame and fork and handlebar. But what I like about the bike is how it handles and rides pretty much the same as a TCR always has done, which is no bad thing. And let's be honest, the TCR is a no-brainer, easy choice if you want a race bike. Good value for money, quality engineering and manufacturing as I've seen firsthand. Great geometry, does what you want. Maybe not the flashiest bike in the world, but I think the paint job on the bike is pretty swish. So you're liking the new bike then?
Loving it.
Faster?
Lighter?
Stiffer.
Stiffer.
Is it easy being retired now? Enjoying the life as a ex-cyclist? Don't miss it at all?
It's definitely much easier.
Yeah. Do you still ride lots?
It's definitely more enjoyable.
Yeah.
I still ride quite often, especially in like the better season.
Okay, yeah.
Like summer.
Yes. Less in the winter when it's raining and cold.
Less in the winter.
Yeah.
Doing more running in the winter.
Running, wow, okay.
Every time I see 5-6 degrees and rain, I ask myself the question, why would I? So I don't go out in that weather anymore.
It's actually the hottest day above. Last weekend it was raining. Tomorrow it's going to rain. So the weight of the new bike is very impressive, and the frame is about the same as a Specialized Tarmac SL8, but a complete bike is lighter, partly due to the new Cadex wheels. So on the weight front, the bike really impresses, but the aero improvements are pretty marginal. About 4 watts claimed, and the old bike, the first TCR to get an aero makeover, wasn't exactly the most aero, the fastest bike in this category. So I can't wait to see how the bike compares to the Tarmac and other lightweight aero all-rounders, and whether they've done enough to compete with those rivals and to win over people who might reasonably have expected a bit more aero. So let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. And it's clear that Giant have really focused on weight and stiffness more than aero. I guess they could have gone more aero because the Propel shows their aero capabilities. But they have designed a bike for the GC rider, a rider who will be sheltered in the bunch and doesn't really need all that aero because they're not out in the wind until the final decisive move. But if you go head to head with a rider on a Super 6 Evo or Tarmac SL8, will this bike hold you back? Well, a big question mark really, and hopefully we'll see some wind tunnel testing and some real world testing, myself and other people testing the bike against their key rivals over the coming weeks and months. I've not really talked about comfort much, or compliance, as is a buzzword these days, because the roads are so smooth that comfort hasn't been an issue at all. The bike is comfortable, the fit is good for me at 181 centimeters on a size ML. So yeah, comfort out here has been fine, and really I can't comment on it anymore until I get home and ride this bike hopefully on my local roads, which are in a much worse state than the lovely roads out here in Taiwan, which are pretty stunning, it has to be said. The few cracks and broken bits of tarmac I have encountered, the bike has really shrugged them off just fine really. And then the new tyres. So Giant Cadex have been pushing the tyres for the last few years, and I haven't been like blown away, to be honest. Certainly not enough to tempt me away from a Conti GP5000 or Vittoria Corsa Speed or Control, but I think this new tyre is a good step forward. I hope to see some independent rolling resistance testing against their key rivals soon. But in terms of that secure feeling, when you're bombing down a descent you've never ridden down before, I've been absolutely banking the bike over the corners, and they grip for days. So yeah, they seem fine really. So lights, I love the weight, or lack of weight. I love the fact they kept the classic look of the bike, the non-drop rear stays. I love the improvements in stiffness and aero. I mean, hard to measure today how much difference they make, but nice to have. I'm not going to tell you nose up against those sorts of improvements, are you? Dislikes, well, tyre clearance isn't much wider. The free hub makes an absolute racket. If you have an interesting decision on a bike, this is a range topping bike I'm riding, 12 grand back in the UK. It's not a spec it with a new one-piece Cadex carbon aero handlebar and stem. We have a carbon handlebar and a separate stem. Pros and cons to both systems, of course, but for a bike trying to extract as much performance as possible, not to get the marginal aero benefits of that one-piece handlebar and stem, seems a slightly odd decision. And also I think people buying this sort of bike might expect, demand and want that one-piece carbon handlebar and stem. The Tarmac has it, Trek has it, Canyon, and so on. So perhaps a missed opportunity. Now there are benefits to a two-piece system. You can change the stem length, handlebar width much more easily than a one-piece. So yeah, interesting one. I'm not sure whether it's the right move. I mean, I don't mind a two-piece bar and stem, but should they have fitted a one-piece? And because talking about aero, it's worth mentioning the new Propel launched last year, which is in the same top-end trim, 6.9 kilos. So not much heavier, but for a lot more aero. Now they ride very differently. This bike is much sharper and more agile. It's a much more lively character than the Propel, which is more purposeful than playful. And is this bike light enough to justify buying it over the Propel? I love the way the bike rides. It's more exciting for me than a Propel, and definitely climbs better. You know, once you get away from the city and all the manufacturing plants, out here in the hills, the riding is lovely. I mean, look around me. Sort of subtropical jungle vibes, nice quiet roads, sort of unfamiliar sound of birds chirping in the trees. But yeah, riding is spectacular, really, really interesting place. Really enjoying it. But let me tell you, the humidity, the heat is just something else. It is real, it's a killer. But having a lot of fun. Yeah, Taiwan has been an eye-opening place, really fascinating place. The centre of bicycle manufacturing, as we all know, but really nice to see what the riding around here is like. Quite the bike, huh?
Quite a bike indeed.
Right.
You know what? The TCR makes riding too easy. It's too light, it's too stiff, it's too fast. I mean, where's the challenge? Where's the test? But hey, what a lot of fun to ride. I do like a TCR. Maybe I'm biased, but I think they make great bikes. I love the engineering, the value for money, the no-nonsense approach to selling bikes. Right, that concludes today's first ride. We've got another ride planned tomorrow, but the embargo is pretty tight, so I try and do what I can. But right now, I need a very, very cold shower and a cold, cold drink. Whew, sweat is pouring off me. But what a fun ride. The bike is fantastic. It's not a revolution, very much an evolution, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of mantra, but they have improved it in so many different areas. The handling is still classic TCR, fantastic geometry, stack, reach, trail, all those numbers just work so well. It's still very much a race bike, quite pointy, quite fast steering, but it's not a bike that if you don't race, you can't enjoy, you can't untap the potential this bike clearly offers. I can't wait to get my hands on a bike back home for testing. Maybe in a more modest trim, Pro model, Ultegra, something like that. But yeah, it's been a fun day. So hopefully this video has given you an overview of what the new bike is all about. It's definitely first impressions, nothing in depth. I'll wait till I get my hands on a bike back home in the UK to really put it through its paces on roads I'm more familiar with and conditions that aren't quite so hot and humid. Now, I'm not complaining, just not used to it, that's all. Got any questions about the bike? Feel free to put a comment down below and subscribe to the channel by hitting that button down there if you want to see more content on a bike coming very soon. Loads to talk about with the bike. I think it's a pretty exciting launch this year. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.